Well, welcome back, folks, to our latest installment of the Georgia Tennis Foundation and the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame's Catching Up series. And boy, this is a special day because we've tracked down the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Al Parker. Al, how you doing?
Doing great, Darren. Yeah, nice to join you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we really appreciate you joining today. Maybe we can start with your junior career because I think you're pretty much known across all aspects as perhaps the greatest junior player in the history of the United States. The statistics are staggering. With 25 national titles, Kalamazoo, all yada yada yada. Did you were you aware of what you were doing? I mean, I know we're all, I remember when I was that age, I certainly wasn't winning nationals. I was getting to them. Were you aware at all? You had any awareness about some of the records you were racking up while you were going through that whole process?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's hard for me to even remember back that far, but I do remember, I guess I kind of had a torrid start, in the 12s where, I had that one of the records is that double Grand Slam where I won all eight titles and,
Amazing.
in my last year in the 12s. So that kind of got me off to a pretty hot start. And so then, I think, people started kind of talking about Scott Davis's record and that, I'd have a chance to kind of go and eclipse that. He had 24 titles. So as I continued to have success, throughout all the age divisions, it definitely was something that was on my mind. I mean, I wouldn't say that, I was incredibly focused on it. I mean, I certainly was, shooting for it, but it wasn't something that was like driving me, throughout my junior career. I just always sort of approached each match and tournament, as a new opportunity and just tried to do my best, in each one. I wasn't really thinking that much, ahead if,
Sure.
just trying to kind of stay in the moment.
Sure. So you're one of your best friends. We just talked earlier, is Stephen Enix, and he told me in an interview one time, I think it was in the 14s, that you served underhand the entire summer and didn't lose a match. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of an exaggeration. I had sort of I think it was actually in the 16s maybe. Or maybe no, maybe it was last year in the 14s. I can't remember, but yeah, I went through kind of a strange mental breakdown almost with my serve where I just could not get the serve in the court. And so yeah, I mean, I think there was a few matches where I was serving underhanded in national tournaments. I think I won some, but definitely, it didn't. That was a tough year in my career, or a tough summer at least. I finally kind of got over it. I don't know what it was. I've got another good buddy, Alan Miller, who I know you know well, who he kind of went through it at Georgia, in one of maybe his freshman sophomore year. I can't remember, but kind of a strange thing when you've done something for so long and then all of a sudden you can't do it.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, speaking of Stephen, he was very he made sure to know that I knew that he beat you in the 12s in Columbia, 1 and 2. I said, I think that's the only match Al Parker lost all year that year. I don't know. Something must have happened. I mean, he must be exaggerating that as well. So,
Yeah, well, Steven was a great player.
oh,
Obviously
absolutely.
incredibly well deserving candidate of the Hall of Fame and one of my great buddies. We played together, all through the juniors. He was a
Right.
little bit older than I was, but then, ended up at Georgia together for two of my 4 years there.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
he's an awesome guy and an incredible competitor and great player.
So you had an amazing peer group. I mean, the group that I played with, like Brian Dunn, Adam Peterson, Cecil Mamet. But you had, I believe, you kind of had Pete and Andre in that mix. Michael Chang.
Yeah.
You're playing against these guys in the juniors. I'm from Southern California, so knew of Pete's legend, and Andre played all of our tournaments, and Michael, of course, was right down the street from them. What a thrill to see those guys, to play against them in juniors and to see what they become at the professional game. Any favorite opponent you had over the years that is like, this person really tests me. It's so much fun to play them. Anyone come to mind?
I mean, not really. I mean, it was really cool, kind of growing up in the era with those guys and competing against them since we were really young, all the way up until the point when, I guess I guess 18s, I think I was ranked, the top player in the country. But all four of those guys, when I say those four, Pete, Andre, and um, Michael Chang, and Courier,
Career,
all
yeah,
they,
yep,
they all decided to turn pro, and
right.
forego college. And I was the only one that, chose to go the college route and went to Georgia. But, they were all, amazing players and incredible competitors. And, you kind of knew they were going to go on to do great things. It was just a matter of when. And, I was good friends with all of those guys. Not, one of them doesn't stand out as being, um, you know, uh, extra special. I really liked them all. I mean, probably Jim Courier, I feel like I was maybe the closest with, and maybe remained a little closer with after tennis. Um, but it was really cool to see what they all went on to accomplish. In the pros. Legends. It's probably the greatest era of American tennis. You know, uh,
It's
seems
definitely, yeah.
seemingly now we're starting to see a lot more American success, which is great to see on the pro tour.
Yeah, no, I think there's a good argument that that was, maybe with McEnroe and Connors and that kind of class that came through with Vitas as well. But definitely those guys were absolutely amazing, and you were right there as well.
I mean, the thing
So
was also, which was interesting, is that, it wasn't just, those four and me. I mean, there were, there's David Wheaton and Malachi Washington. I
right,
mean, there's
Todd
tons of
Martin.
players, Chris Garner. I mean, it was a, probably 15, 20 deep of great players that, arguably on any given day could win a national title.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Chris Garner. I came across him. I'm usually the referee for the Division III NCAAs. So when he was at Amherst, he won a couple national titles there, and I was so impressed with, he was a competitive guy, but he did things the right way and lifted those guys up to a new plateau in terms of their abilities. He's a great player, obviously, and a
Yeah.
fantastic coach. So I'm glad. Thank you for mentioning Chris. I haven't come across him in a while since he's moved to Division One.
Yeah, well, Chris, he was probably you know, among my very closest friends. He was my original doubles partner, in the 12s. He loves to tell the story that in my one of my records, the double grand slam that I mentioned earlier, he loves to say that I would have never had that record if he hadn't run for a drop shot. That David Wheaton, we were playing David Wheaton and Jeff Tarango in the finals of the hard court doubles, and
Okay.
I think they had match point against us and hit a let cord. We were all four at the net, like exchanging volleys, and they hit a let cord that bounced into the doubles alley, and I thought there was no way Chris could get to it, and he ran over, got to it, and hit it, I think, cross court for a winner.
Wow.
We came back and won that match. So he loves to give me a hard time that I would have, one of my records is he's responsible for.
And I'm sure,
But
I'm sure knowing Jeff, I know Jeff pretty well because Southern Cal. I'm sure he remembers that point to this day.
he probably does. Yep, yep. Yeah, he and Dave, he and
Right.
Dave, another two great players that went on to great pro success.
Yeah. And at Stanford as well. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite tournament in the juniors? I mean, obviously Kalamazoo's a very special place. I know you won there in '86.
Yeah, I'd probably say that the zoo was the favorite. I mean, it's just there's so much history there, and I think people hold that tournament out as being kind of extra special and probably the one to win if you could only win one national title. So I was super fortunate to be able to win that one in my first year in the 18s. I think I played Wheaton in the finals, and it's just such a kind of an electric place. Holding both the 16s and 18s there
Right.
when I played.
Yeah, I
So.
got to play two matches in that stadium, the three-court stadium. Didn't win either of them, but I'll remember to this day what a thrill. And the stands, it was right at lunchtime, so the stands were packed. This is, first, second round match, or maybe we got to the quarters of the doubles one year, so it might have been one of those. But
Yeah.
what a great historical place. So coach, some of the coaches that helped you. I mean, you've had so many people help you in your game. Let's put aside the college world now. Let's just talk about juniors.
Yeah.
I think Gary was probably a big part of your success. Would you agree, Gary Grolemond?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, when I first started, I mean, the one that I really need to give the most credit to is Wally Norwich, down in Savannah at the Chatham Tennis Club. He's the one that kind of got me started, and really he was really my coach throughout the juniors. But I did start to kind of go up to Gary when I was maybe 14, years old or so, and I would credit Gary with helping to maybe transition my game, a bit to more of an all court player. With Wally, I mean, I grew up as a big time baseliner and just was super focused on the ground stroke game. But Gary was really responsible, I think, for kind of getting me into the net more, improving my serve and kind of using aggression as a weapon as well. And Gary was a great player himself, and
Sure.
um, obviously, I think incredibly well respected. As a coach, it wasn't only me, but he had a ton of the top players in the South, working with him, and so he was a big part of my development for sure.
Yeah, and the timing's right because he was one of the two members of this year's class,
Absolutely.
and it was a great ceremony. Amazing job Gary's done with so many players, and it was great. I know his wife appreciated some of those old Stanford photos with the short,
Yeah,
shorts and what have you. That was
short shorts. Yeah, it's
uh,
amazing. I'm looking at this picture on the screen of me. It's amazing how short the shorts were.
yeah. I pulled that one. I don't know where we pulled that from, but somewhere.
I think that was in 16s, maybe in clay courts, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, wow, it's a great photo. Whoever took it. So.
But
And then, it turns out that Coach Dick Gould and I went to the same high school. So our families are friends, and obviously Dick coached Gary at Stanford and
yeah,
amongst, and you guys, and we'll transition to when you decided, it sounds like maybe your heart was set on Georgia right from the beginning, right from the start. You had some success, and to your credit, I'm sure you had so many other offers, but you were a man of your word, and you attended the University of Georgia, and obviously a great program. So being
yeah.
from Georgia, probably a dream, right, to play in Athens.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I grew up a bulldog, and been, a dog since birth, really, and still, unbelievably special to me. But I think Coach McGill wrote me my first letter after I won the Crackerland when I was 10, and I think I shook hands with him after the match, and he used to like to say that he shook hands with me and said he wanted me to come to Georgia one day, and I said, that I would do that. And so he goes back and because back when I was 18, I was top player in the country, and I did have a lot of options, obviously, and I visited Stanford, Southern Cal, UCLA, and Pepperdine. They were sort of, I considered them in the mix with Georgia. I was always pretty, I was 90+% sure I was going to go to Georgia, but I took the visits to just kind of do the diligence, and
You got to visit
did.
Pepperdine. You
What's
got
that?
to you got to visit. You get offered to visit Pepperdine.
Yeah,
You're going.
exactly. And I did have a lot of respect for Coach Gould. Obviously, with the tradition they'd built at Stanford, and the academics were always important to me. So, that was probably of the California schools one that I was maybe considering, the most. But so anyway, Coach McGill said I made him sweat a little bit when he knew I was visiting some other places, and but when I finally committed to Georgia, he claims that I told him, "Well, coach, you offered me a scholarship when I was 10, and I said I was coming to Georgia, and I'm a man of my word." So,
Right. The,
but Georgia was an unreal experience for me of the segments of my tennis career. When I think of juniors, college, and pros, I mean, it was by far the favorite, of my three sort of segments, and it was really special, playing for Coach McGill, who'd recruited me for so long, and Coach Diaz, I mean, who is an absolute legend, and
right.
has gone on to accomplish so much. And Coach McGill stayed to coach my freshman year, and then Manuel was the coach for my last 3 years. So
Okay.
I'm one of a handful of players that got to have each of them as a head coach, and um, we've got such a great tradition at Georgia. I mean, our Letterman's group is so close. I mean, we've got, generations going through 8, 9 decades of guys that come back and, are close with each other and trying to help each other in different ways outside of tennis. So we've built a special culture and tradition that I know Coach McGill and Coach Diaz should be really proud of. I know I am.
It's a special place. my senior year, my team, I played at Santa Barbara. We made the last 16. And it happened that was the year UCLA hosted. So it was great for our fans, but deep down, I think a lot of us are like, yeah, would have been great to play in Athens once.
Yeah, I
We'd
mean,
gotten screwed. We were the West Coast team. We would have been forced to play at 8 a.m. on the back courts with, we would have gotten screwed like all the West Coast teams always told me they got screwed when they come to Athens. But
well,
a
I mean,
great place.
it was definitely a home court advantage, when we had it in Athens.
Sure,
But I'll say that all my buddies, at all the other schools, I mean, many of them will say they would rather have had it there just because the environment was so electric and fun to play in versus, some other places where maybe you don't attract the same,
sure.
fan base and support. So, for me, it was really fun. I mean, there's a lot of pressure, obviously, kind of playing in front of the crowd and with high expectations. But at the same time, for me, the team environment was what was really special to me. I mean, I guess, tennis is such an individual sport, and other than doubles, you're really kind of out there alone for the most part, when you're playing in juniors and pros. But I loved the team environment, and it was just fun for me to be playing for something beyond just yourself. Not only the team but also the fans and the state.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. I think if you locked, Billy Martin and Dick Leach and Dick Gould and Peter Smith and all these guys in a room, um, most of them would agree with you. Maybe all of
Yeah,
them. Like, you know what? Yeah, it was tough, but it was great. Those are the matches we'll always remember. So, like I said, it would have been great for us to play there. We ended up at UCLA. It was great for our fans, but it would have been nice to, the one time we made it to come to Athens. But yeah, that's the way it goes. That's just the
yeah.
way of the schedule. So. Great. So, hey, what about you? But, one thing I'm so impressed with is your academic success at Georgia. Balancing that with what obviously we were playing tennis. I mean, not every student athlete did it as well as you did. Is that something maybe that was instilled by your parents? Academics very important. You took it obviously very seriously, and it's probably helped you, right, later in life, transitioning to different careers. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, my parents definitely, my mom in particular, probably, always instilled the importance of, education and I was just always, I feel like it was in my personality that whatever it was I was doing, whether it was school or sports, I just always wanted to give it my very best. So, I put a lot of pressure on myself to make good grades, and I did that, all the way from, a young kid, first grade all the way through high school and then at Georgia. And so it was just something that, was really important to me, to do my best. And, also I did sort of always look at it as, a little bit of an insurance policy for sure. I mean, where tennis is, I mean, even though I'd had a lot of success, obviously in the juniors and in college, I never was one to be overconfident, in myself and, my future ability. I mean, maybe I would have been an even better player, if I had been, but I just always knew there was, being realistic, there was a chance you're going to have injury problems, and sure enough, I did. And that sort of forced me off the tour, and obviously really happy that I had the education, and the educational success, to fall back on, to be able to go on, into business and be able to build a career, and obviously use the education to my advantage.
Sure. Yeah, very impressive. A lot of academic awards and standouts, and to balance that with I mean, you weren't just playing at any school, Al. You were playing, at Georgia. I mean, every year you guys are expecting to challenge for the national championship. It takes a lot of time and dedication and effort. Very, very impressive. I know it really jumped off the page when I was doing some extra research on you. So kudos on that.
Yeah, no, I mean it definitely something that I'm equally proud of, the academics, versus the athletics. It is hard. I mean, to balance, both and kind of burn the candle at both ends, but I do think it's important, and I hope that, like, my career, can be an example for, other kids, that are really great, when they're young and in college, to also focus on their education, because there's really, it's definitely not going to be given to you out on the tour. It's tough enough if you're healthy, to make it and ultimately be, able to sort of have your career be tennis.
Right.
But certainly when you factor in injuries, into the equation, it's just, I think, important to have that dual focus.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I mean, you're synonymous with unbelievable junior success. You probably know the Al Parker Junior Player of the Year award for a Georgia junior. We just announced it yesterday, and it was actually Ellery Mandel, who lives in Athens, one of our top female players. So, following in your footsteps, all the players, we're lucky here in Georgia. We have a lot of great players. They're all following your footsteps. Some will be great. They'll all be great in their own way, right? Whether on
Yeah.
court, off court. What a great role model for all those players. So, you're in a lot of Hall of Fames, my friend. Southern IT, and then the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame
Right.
last year, and this actually Wendy White got in this year. So, 2 consecutive years of tennis players in the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame. Um, talk about what you felt about each of these. I mean, obviously they're the same, a little somewhat different. IT is specific, of course, to your collegiate success. Anything come to mind about? I mean, those are former Hall of Fames that I'm in, by the way. So
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah, no, the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame was the most recent, and obviously super honored that they chose to induct me. I went in with an incredibly talented class. I mean, it was cool to go in with Coach Mark Rick,
Okay.
who I've always looked up to and admired. And there were obviously, other amazingly accomplished athletes and coaches. Andrew, it was also cool to be in the class with Andrew Jones, the center fielder for the Braves.
Okay. Great.
Um, but no, it was a great honor, and I mean, I was certainly humbled. So and all of the Hall of Fames, it's really hard to kind of differentiate between, them all and pick anyone out as being extra special. The one that's not on here, which I've always kind of held near and dear to my heart, is the University of Georgia Circle of Honor.
No, that's
It's not,
true.
it's
Right.
not necessarily a Hall of Fame, but it's
Right.
something that meant a ton to me just because of how much I love Georgia, and I'm
Sure.
such a bulldog, and so that was also special for me as well.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely deserving to be in every one of these, and I'm sure there's another one coming that you're not aware of yet. So we'll have to see where that goes. But what a true Hall of Famer in every sense of the word. So are you playing a lot of tennis now? You're playing a little bit, a little. What are you doing on court now? You hitting some forehands by people still?
Yeah, I was playing, 2 or 3 times a week. I don't play sets and matches, but play an hour of kind of baseline points with different friends, Trey
Okay.
Carter, Don Johnson, other friends that played with me, but have had some injury problems kind of reoccur,
Okay.
so I've kind of gotten off track a little bit in the last 6 months to a year at just some of the same old things that I kind of struggle with on the that sort of forced me off the tour, the back injury and
Yeah.
rotator cuff, and now that I'm almost 56, I've got some new issues like
Tell me
knees, and
about it. I know. I
it
turned.
seems
Yeah.
like every day we're out there, one of the two of us is complaining about some new injury or ailment.
Oh yeah. I turned 50 this year, and boy, I've noticed a difference. Like, oh man,
Yeah, yeah.
ouch. So. Great. Okay, well, final question for you here, and just really appreciate your time. Is obviously you were inducted into the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame in 2003 with George Wallace. When you got the phone call that you were being inducted into the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame, what was your first reaction? What does the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame mean to you?
Yeah, I mean I think it was maybe Coach McGill even that I got the call from, and he did my induction speech. It was a little different back then. And obviously I was incredibly honored. I was really surprised that I was chosen that quickly, after my career, and was incredibly honored. And I remember, when I gave my speech, I was emotional, as I tend to be, in all these situations, because it does mean, a ton to me. such a huge part of my life, and it's really kind of think helped form me, in so many ways. And it's obviously very special to be recognized along with so many other great players and coaches. Something that I definitely hold near and dear to my heart. As I mentioned, all of the honors, all of the Hall of Fames. It's all been very special.
Well, I can tell you that we have 76 members of the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame, with Gary and Philip Johnson, another Georgia player, coming in this year. But there's probably about two or three that everyone talks about, right? In terms of Bitsy Grant, I think Dan Magill, you put that, and Al Parker. I mean, we were just here filming some things in the Hall of Fame, and there's some of your memorabilia here, and the person's like, "Oh, there's Al's. Here's Al. I mean, Al's. You're held in that reverence. So
Yeah.
I hope you know that, and take some celebration in that. So, just really want to thank you for joining us here today.
Absolutely. Very happy to do it. It's been awesome talking with you, Darren, and uh, would be happy to do it again if ever of interest.
Great. Well, we appreciate it. Well, folks, that is the amazing class of 2003, member of the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame, a man who needs no introduction, but we'll say it anyway, Al Parker. Al, thanks for joining us today. We hope we get another one posted shortly. Thanks for watching.